right, well, let's go straight into your top 3, starting number 3.
Against the Storm. Should we do like a drum roll? Against the Storm. It's already on the screen. Yeah, so I actually feel like I don't hear many places talking about this. No traditional media, no YouTubers, anything like that. And technically, this should have an asterisk on it. Because this game came out in December last year, but we were already in the middle of recording as this game was coming out. So what, you have like 2 days to play a game?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it also had some DLC released this year, keeps it fresh and stuff. So I feel like December last year is merit of being on the list this year.
Yeah, November to November.
What a game. So yeah, Against the Storm. So pretty much it's a city builder mixed with like a roguelite. Now, how, you may ask, is that possible? How do you get roguelike elements into a city builder? Don't you need certain like type of build structure and all this kind of thing? But they've actually managed to do it really, really well. It kind of, so you start off with like a kind of a caravan with like people and some basic resources, and then you start off with your small caravan. You build one thing at a time, and in traditional sort of like roguelite sort of fashion, you get like cards or random drops or some sort of like loot drop that has certain building elements in it, and you have to kind of cater your sort of building to the area that you're in. There's different biomes. So the biome, if you're in say a swampy biome or like the mysterious forest biome, there might be, maybe there's carrots and like rock in one, so you have to get your carrots and rock farming buildings and like quarries and stuff. Or if you're in the you can get like farmland, and then you make like your radishes for food, and you could get like your clay is another one, and then so on and so forth. As you can see from the footage, it kind of builds on from there. You get different resources, but the main catch to the roguelite element is you're actually trying to keep your citizens happy. And you get maybe 3 or so different types of citizens in a level. You can get between lizards, harpies, humans, dwarfs, toads, which are the new ones, foxes, and I think that's it. So basically, how it works in how you win a level, you go in, you have to make sure your people are happy by giving them specific types of foods that they like. Lizards like meat, etc., etc. And different factions are good at different buildings. So you put a dwarf into a lumber camp, they're better at that. Yeah. You put the lizard into the smelting factory, and they're good at that. Yeah. And that kind of helps you accelerate. And that's the basic run of it. You have to get your citizens so happy that you reach a certain threshold, and after that threshold you win. If you keep them happy or pissed off or kill them, or if they leave, then your impatience threshold goes. There's 2 thresholds, and if your impatience threshold outpaces and beats your reputation threshold, you're game over, and that's the run done. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I would say probably the best bits are so what I have written down here is like a creative execution of the strategy formula, mixing in full roguelike elements. So I've never seen this done before, by the way. I've never seen a city builder, and I love city builders, and roguelites, I love roguelites, and I've never seen these two married so perfectly well. And I feel like Against the Storm doesn't really get the sort of reputation it deserves, or its kudos for what it's after creating here, because I feel like this is the perfect entry point for not detractors, but people who aren't really into city builders. This is a great first step into them, because city builders can be kind of intimidating, because they can go on for hours and hours and hours, like City Skylines, where you can be at it for dozens and dozens and dozens of hours. Years. Yeah. The game is basically, each town will be about 2 hours, and then you're back. You get your roguelike points to upgrade your towns, unlock new buildings, unlock 10% faster traders arrive, you know, with all your roguelike
Yeah.
points and stuff, permanent upgrades. And even as you're seeing here, you get like your orders, you can choose kind of like objectives to do during a mission, and you get rewards for that during the mission to help you out. But just the way that they've married this, I'd say this is a brilliant stepping off point for somebody who's never played a city builder before. And I say this as somebody, like, I'm into city builders and I like them, and this is the best I've ever seen. This is absolutely tremendous.
Funny enough, as you describe this, it very much reminds me of Babelden that I got this year.
Babelden, yes.
It's similar in the aspect as your city building, but you get your random events that pop up and create that roguelike aspect to it. And I never would have pegged it as roguelike, but as you describe it, I'm like, actually, this is a great comparison of like a different version of this style of gameplay. Is a different game.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like about this sort of art style is that it's almost kind of like I don't know, folklore. It's like folklore-y.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, it just has this kind of fairy tale sort of folklore,
Very
sort
medieval.
of art style and art direction. Even the music is so whimsical and kind of
Fantasy.
like, mysterious. But it's not dark. It's kind of like positive sort of, mystical and whimsical sort of world. It's just wonderful. It's brilliant. And then you got like the best parts of a city builders are distilled into an addictively challenging package. Because the worst thing about city builders, like I was saying, they can go on for hours and hours and hours. But this is a nice condensed distilled package.
You have an end goal every time.
You have the same end goal, but this leads perfectly onto the next point I was going to say. So each map offers different objectives. There's different ways to win it, and you don't know what citizens you're going to get. You do know what you're going to start with, but you don't know what citizens are going to arrive in your camp during the mission. So you could set up for humans, but then you end up getting like something like harpies and foxes, which are all work different systematically. So you have to cater for them and adapt and build towards them. So it keeps it fresh all the time. The game is just constantly kept fresh, even without added content or DLCs, which the game is always being added on. They're always adding more updates. In fairness, the devs are catering really well. They do. They have updates to the game all the time. Yeah.
You're mad at that deal.
The DLC. The one thing I didn't like about the DLC is that the frogs, which is the new faction that they added, they had a very steep level you had to be at. So you had to be at level 13 to unlock the frogs.
Was an interesting way of doing in the DLC, because obviously normally when you buy a DLC to a game, it locks you in. You have direct access to that DLC straight away. But this DLC, as you said, you had to be at a certain level to access them. And how much did you have to grind? Where did you start when you got that DLC?
Well, that's a good question. So I was about 60 hours into the game through the year.
Yeah.
And then the DLC came out. And luckily at the time, I didn't know when I bought the DLC, but I was level 11 and you need to be level 13.
Yeah.
So it took me 75 hours in total to get there.
Like another
to actually just get to the DLC content.
Yeah. So, but that's changed now, hasn't it?
That's right. In fairness now, I have to say it has changed. So an update there a few weeks ago when recording this in December 24, they have updated it. So it is level 9 now. Now, I could have done with that when I first bought it, but I don't really see that it needed to be so high for just a new faction. Now, they say that they're more difficult, but I didn't really see that. I'm already 75 hours in.
Yeah.
I know how the game plays.
I've never seen it do that before as well. Any game do a DLC that you have to unlock to a certain level before you access it, even though you've paid for it. You're like, what's happening? If it was a free DLC, I could understand, but it was a bot DLC, wasn't it?
It was a bot DLC. Now, in fairness, the only other game I know that does something like that is Elden Ring. I think they've released a mid-level DLC where you had to be a certain amount of hours, 40 hours into it.
For the expansion now.
Yeah, for the expansion. But I've never seen a game like this. There's no reason for them to not do that, unless because the citizens you get, the factions you get, are so ingrained into the game that they might think the frogs are more difficult to manage and they might need harder sort of resources to kind of keep them happy. But I still think it's a little steep. It could be level 5, level 9. It was level 13. That's 75 hours in.
Yeah, that's a lot to play, like, commit to a game. I suppose you're committed to a game if you're going to get DLC as well.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And even then, the DLC was pretty scant. Now, since they have changed that as well, they added a new biome to it as well, which I actually haven't played. But I felt like I had 1 or 2 games with the frogs and felt like, okay, I've seen everything the DLC even has that's tougher.
From this game, what was the thing that you enjoyed the most that set it apart from that made it your top, like your third top of this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the one fundamental thing was the fact that they had figured out how to successfully manage or build into roguelike and city builder, how they managed to like genre blend those two genres and make something so successful, so just unlimitedly replayable. It's brilliant, and it's so very accessible as well. It's not very, I don't know, how do I say, like, you don't need to invest hundreds of hours like others.
Just 75.
Only 75 to get to the DLC. But the fact that you start off fresh every 2 hours, that in itself is enough to kind of merit the sort of exciting part of city builders. For me, the exciting part of the city builders are actually starting off.
Oh yeah.
It's not when you get dozens and dozens of hours in city skylines and you're just kind of like managing this ultra massive city that if you stop for a week, you're not going to remember where you are.
Yeah.
But this game, it's 2 hours, it's digestible, it's easily playable. I 100% recommend it for anybody who's a skeptic of city builders or even roguelites, but it's more for city builder folk. Or people who are looking to get into city builders or who don't like or bounce off city builders.
The creation like aspect of games.
Yeah.
And then the combat and all those sort of things.
There's no fighting.
Is this your
like
Cozy Valley game?
You know what? It might be. Yeah, because it is a cozy city builder. There's no fighting. Although that's not to say that it's without its
combats. There's still the like internal combats that you still have to go up. I don't know. Do they do external combat?
Well, not combat, but there's timed trials that you have to gather resources to resolve. And if you don't, then you lose like your impatience and you're one step closer towards losing a map. But there's not really... There's no fighting. It's not a real-time strategy where you're making military units to fight. You're just managing your little caravan of little houses and towns and like little factories and little lumberjacks.
I'm pinning this as your Cozy Valley game.
Okay. I'll sell it that.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to go for your number 2?
I don't actually, because I want to. I've gone through some good parts, but I think I've gone through some downer parts as well. The only thing about it is that it's pretty slow to start. So it takes a couple dozen hours and to get like useful perks and unlocks from your, how do you say, like roguelike permanent upgrades or whatever. You need to be playing for like 20 plus hours before you get to the good stuff. So like 10 maps in, say, and then you're actually getting to interesting stuff. I mean, stuff that's not 1% faster trading time. It's like, ooh, it's like actual tangible stuff. Like humans start with 20 extra stone, or harpies start with their signature house. Like that's tangibly good stuff. You don't need 1% faster trade time or 1% faster villagers arrive time. That's nonsense. Who cares about that? It's so negligible. So that's kind of crap. So it's a little bit slow to start, but when you get those and you're good to go. So what I'm saying is between 20 hours and 75 hours, golden era.
Sweet spot.
Golden era.
Sweet
spot.
Give yourself 2 weeks to get into it.
Yeah, give yourself 2 weeks. I swear it gets good after the 5th episode. So the other thing is that they have this overworld map, and it's combined with like a limited time to complete your journey. You only get like maybe 8 journeys to make before you reach the end map, and I don't really know what's going on with that. It's very obtuse. Maybe people who have played the game, they probably know what I'm talking about when you're going with your caravan from map to map.
Ambiguous.
Yeah, it's just too opaque. I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
Like, why does it take that amount of time? Why can't it just guide you to where you need to go? It doesn't even have a track on the bottom to say you have 3 more places to get to before you get to the end. It's just this random track at the bottom with different lengths of time, and makes no sense to me. I've already gone through the DLC prerequisite is way too harsh, the DLC is a bit scant. But in summary, it's the perfect introduction for a strategy game objector. It perfectly encapsulates the best part of City Builders, wrapped with a fresh roguelike twist.
Ooh, what a lovely summary.
Perfect.
Excellent.